This is day 4 of the July 93 7-day retreat in Springwater. Three questions stand out from previous meetings. Not just mentioned or asked by one person. One is, why do I get forever hurt? Always hurt again, so easily, wounded. And then the withdrawal or the anger, the depression, the pain. Does that have to repeat itself over and over and over again? Getting hurt. Another one is astonishing how much shared by so many people, that brief mention of a woman walking easily, freely through the woods and then coming down the hill and seeing the building. And that building spelled people. And people spelled fear of people. Shared by a lot of people. This sentiment, there was quite a bit of laughter here when this was mentioned. The laughter of recognition. It's my problem too. And then sort of entering into that. Why am I so afraid of people? What's going on? What does people mean? Is that connected with the first question? It spells hurt, pain, inferiority, potential for doing wrong, for making mistakes, and the guilt or having made mistakes, past guilt. Why this fear of people? And the third cluster of wonderings and questions and comments is, it seems relatively easy to look at a tree. There it is. But to look at my emotions, my desires, my anger, or leave the my out to look at desire, anger, emotions, fear, is in no ways as simple as looking at a tree. Something else, much more subtle, is going on. Something hidden, concealed, preventing looking, or preventing grasping the whole thing at a glance. And then even wondering whether looking at a tree is really simple for us, or whether, in looking at the tree, the floor in front of us, maybe the edge of the knees and legs, hearing the breeze. Is it really simple? Simple meaning just there what's there? Ka, ka, ka. Or is there definitely or vaguely an observer? Someone who sees, who knows, who judges, who has a position. Which comprises our whole personal and collective past, that position of separation. So how shall we go about all of this? The fear of people, the fear of past hurt and future hurt and present hurt. Which includes anger, pain, jealousy, envy. And this vague or very definite feeling of being the separate observer of all of that. Yesterday in a meeting in which anger was brought up, someone asked me, what do you feel about reacting or responding to anger by expressing it? Beating pillows or something, not someone. I just went around how to approach this anger. To express it or not to express it, to look at it, to be with it, to feel it deeply. Ever so deeply. To be with it, to give it time, to give it space. And one person kept interjecting. These are all projects. I don't want to engage in any more projects. Projects implying I've got to do this, or what can I do? Give me help, give me input, so next time I can try it out, to do that. I don't want any more projects, I've got enough. I've got them all. So how can we even talk this morning without this already being or being made into a project? It's very subtle, because there can be a moment of listening and seeing something, and then it becomes a project. All right, next time, that's what I'm going to do. At which moment we become human being, the maker, homo faber, making something, a tool to clobber the next situation. To be in control. Are we in control listening to caw, caw, caw? Is there a controller? Is there a listener? Or for a moment just caw, caw, caw? How is it? Don't think about how it is. See, the questions are so tempting and misleading. They're already leading one into the trap. Not absolutely necessarily so, but most of the time. We begin to think, well, is there an observer? Is there a project? Am I making an effort? And because we've learned to give answers to questions, we answer, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And then, well, I shouldn't make a project out of it. Because we've said yes, and we say you shouldn't. Or because we answer no, we say, oh, we're good. We could end the whole talk right now with this question, whether there can be listening to hurt, fear, caw, or the tree, or this separate, painful or gnawing feeling of separate observer. Can that be listened to, experienced, felt, whatever word you want to use? Words are already leading into the trap. Can it just be there without the whole background of my personal life and the life on earth, not just humanity? Life of the individual cell growing more and more complex, mammals, and then us human beings, all our history. To protect, to defend, to make sure, to be secure, to run away, to be hurt. Something starts with human beings that is probably not very pronounced, although we're not sure completely, we don't know what happens in huge brains like the whales or porpoises or apes, the great apes. How much thought formation and image formation there is, and how much that leads to suffering in and of itself without a present stimulus, without a present hurtful situation. Just a reminder is enough to be afraid for a human being. Just a reminder of what happened is enough to come into this whole circuit of anger and keep it going by thinking some more about what happened and what shouldn't have happened, and sort of drawing it out, spinning out this web of story and image, and the physical response is what we call anger, or fear, or jealousy, or envy, the greed for more. All made possible through thought and image, which can be projected into what is thought to be the future being, projected thought. That's what the future is. Of me having more or having better, or being afraid again, getting hurt again. The projection of people from the past, what people have meant, maybe already to the tiny baby, the toddler, young child, or teenager. What people have meant, it has meant hurt, humiliation, inferiority in the presence of giants, the dwarf amongst the giants. The power of the giants over the dwarf, being picked up. We're pick-upable for so many years. Just can be picked up and put someplace. Not of our choosing. And that's people to the little one. The little one learns faster and more readily and flexibly than the older one. At 2 years of age, I read recently, as the optimum of learnability and imitative capacity. retention. So this is what is happening to human beings thanks to their immense, mysterious, and as someone has called, presumptuous brain. Because it's a judgment, and it would be nice to leave judgments out, because we're already so under the impact of judgments. Judging and being judged is maybe the greatest part of our pain, fear, jealousy, the whole set of deep, upsetting, and persevering emotions. And the ability to reproduce what happened in, somebody called it, in displays in the brain. Who knows what they look like, but we can see the angry scene. It can still be like a not very sharp video, not as sharp, but can still remember. One can still remember what made one angry. Somebody not doing what one wanted to be done to, or what one wanted to be, how one wanted to be treated. Someone telling one something critical. Somebody not doing their job, and therefore I have to do more. I can go over and over and over it, can't I? And the body will happily, willingly produce the same symptoms over and over again. Not discerning. There's not this discerning power in the brain to see what is just repetitive stimulation and what is a real, fresh situation. It responds in the same way to memory as to what's happening this instant. So there, we're back to this instant, what's happening this instant. Seeing the roof of the house, hearing a criticism, looking at the tree. What's our response? Where is it coming from? Somebody said yesterday, I'm most relaxed when I lie down. And as I was lying down, memory after memory emerged. Very incoherent. This scene and then that and this and that, all jumble mumble. And suddenly it occurred to me, that's not where intelligence can come from. It's all memory, jumping around, producing responses and reactions in thought and physical reaction. Do we think we should be intelligent? We shouldn't be guided by memory? Does that thought come up? It is so antithetical to everything and anything we've learned that just seeing something, perceiving the truth of something that's happening this moment has its own intrinsic action, intelligent action. It's not given time to unfold because the memory reaction comes in so quickly. Maybe there was a moment of seeing roof and people and the body about to go into its habitual convulsion of fear and withdrawal or repulsion. It can all be seen at an instant. But so quickly, either being overwhelmed, the thoughts and emotions continue, more memory feeding in or drawn upon, and the thing keeps going. And we say, well, seeing it or being aware of it is not enough. No, because there is no awareness of it at this point. It's just the process is running in its habitual grooves, augmenting itself through more thought, more emotion, more thought, more emotion, and then conflict with the whole thing. I don't want this. I hate it. How can I get rid of it? Give me a tool, give me a method. Not to fall into the trap. You could say that if there was no way of unconditioned presence, if there was no unconditioned presence possible for human beings, then we'd all be doomed. Doomed to repeat over and over and elicit responses in those toward whom our reactions are directed, because no one will be the recipient of anger without retaliating unless there is either very strong control, which is not unconditioned presence, it's learned, or else this openness of an unconditioned perception. And by unconditioned perception, I don't mean that the body stops functioning. The highly conditioned processes of the body, brain, the circulation of blood, and whatever all is necessary to live healthily, they go on functioning. The healthier, the less interrupted by these repetitive, painful thought and emotion cycles. Mood cycles, depressive cycles, anger, jealousy cycles, greed cycles, whatever all moves human beings like you and me, all of us, since time immemorial. It's nobody's fault it's going on. Nobody to blame, it's happening. But the simple question is, no, it's not a question, it's a fact. It is a fact that it's possible for an ordinary human being to be unconditionally present, unconditionally meaning out of the network of past experiences with their responses, their memories, their projections, their interpretations, their misinterpretations, their misrememberings, mismemories, all this whole network in which circles around me as the sufferer the sufferer of pain and insult, or the sufferer of jealousy, the victim of fear, the doer of projects to combat that painful burden. This whole network of past experiences with their associated physical counterparts, most of which feel cumbersome, painful, and burdensome, circles and centers around me as the endurer and the doer. And look, each one for ourselves, what all the images are. They are there for inspection. They can be seen. There's really interest to catch, how do I see myself? How do I talk to myself? In terms of what? Is it in terms of the endurer of injustice? Of the sufferer of pain, of insult, of hurt? Don't I see myself as that? Don't I talk to myself about that? Don't I talk about the whole situation in terms of what's happening or has happened to me and how the other people are? I don't have only images of myself, I have images of the other people. I only need to see the roof of a building, I already have images of the people who are against me, or dangerous to be with, dangerous to compare myself to, because they are better than I am. Whatever. I'm not saying this is precisely like that for you or you, not even for me. I'm trying to sort of improvise something that we can put our own personal imagery into, to watch it. As a part or in addition to the personal content of each of these memory cycles, or this whole network of personal life history, it's also general for all of us. It's common. Not just so for women or for men or for whites and not for blacks, or for Westerners but not for Easterners. Somebody every once in a while will say, oh, the Easterners must have it so much easier. Because they developed all these spiritual disciplines and probably have much less I. The Chinese language not supposed to even have that case of I. But the ancient Zen stories, just to take something I'm a little bit familiar with, talk about 10 years, 20 years, after 30 years, still no seeing, clobber. So it's probably not just connected with the word I. And I'm not saying it takes 10, 12, 30, 50 years to see something. That becomes a project again, doesn't it? Somebody this morning said, this mind, it just goes chatter, 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 chatter. But we were laughing about it. There was a certain lightness about it. And she said, of course, as long as this chatter goes on, there's fear of people. Chatter, 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 being the network, the empire, in which I, as conceptualized me, sit in the middle of the web, with the images of me and the others, and the feeling of separation and the fear that already separation brings about. A feeling of separation brings fear and anxiety even if nobody has done anything to me. It's so interesting to watch. Recently, a woman came with her little child. It was so tiny, but on two legs already walking. And she looked you right in the eyes. Two straight eyes looking right straight into your eyes. There was no fear in it. And she ventured out a little bit, but every once in a while back to between the legs of her mother. And out a little bit further and back there. And the mother said, I don't know what's going on with her, because usually she's not afraid at all. She walks right up. But there were lots of us. Maybe more than she's used to. And so there's this venturing toward people. They weren't even little people. Kyle, my husband, he got on his knees and he looked through my legs when she was between her mother's legs, and she laughed. So I was more her size, because he has a big face in comparison. But she was on more equal terms. And somebody took her by the hand and led her around the kitchen cold room, and she walked along. So there was both. There was interest in people, and yet sort of at times safe base between the legs of her mother. And then venturing out again. And that in that little tiny life, there hasn't been much trauma yet. That was clear. Hasn't been much pain, maybe not any. Maybe no fear of people. The trouble with the operation of this brain or the thought process, which is associative, is that something fearful gets connected with whatever else was perceived at the same time and remembered just by its proximity in time and space. And that can elicit a fear response even. That wasn't the thing that hurt. And again, the brain doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't say, wait a minute, the table that was there, or the other people that were there when you fell, or when somebody yelled at you, that had nothing to do with it. It doesn't know that. It doesn't say that. The whole complex of objects and situations is brought up when the fear stimulus arises. And the body responds to everything. And that can draw wider and wider associative circles, responding fearfully to what is never going to be a danger. And not just proximity in time and space, but we talked about it. People say, waiting there to come into a meeting, my heart starts beating, and sometimes I feel perspiring in my armpits. Something reminds me of something frightening. One doesn't even know what all the avenues are, but we went into that a little bit. Maybe reminded of having to see the school principal. The supervisor. Whatever. And the interesting thing is that it happens in retreats. So many people tell me, so it must be a feature of the silent sitting and wondering, that scenarios do pop up from the past for people, where something is vividly seen that had been completely forgotten, and that popping up and looking at it now brings a relief or release. Does this now turn into a project? I have to bring up things from the past. It happens. People who tell me about it say that they weren't engaged in a dredging project. It happened. It's the mind left alone, well, maybe not completely left alone. That's not true. There's a wondering about what happened. Why am I afraid of people? It happened to someone. Something from the childhood came up, and it brought a tremendous relief, not just seeing the scene or the situation that sort of began with incorporating fear of people, but also seeing something, being free, a free perception of something, of a memory, but not judged. Or it was also not feared, it was just seen. Sometimes people bring such a scene and say, what should I do with it? Why do something with it? It's happened. I feel the same way about dreams. People bring dreams and say, what should I do with it? Look at it, see it. One has dreamt it, it's happened. The language is not correct, one hasn't dreamt it, the dream has happened. And that in itself has its own significance, it can be looked at. So again, putting it into a question, is it possible to see the tree, the roof of the house, the note somebody has written, being critical or correcting something one hasn't done right with a housekeeping or whatever? Maybe close the door too noisily, a note may appear. How does one respond? How does one look at it? Is one interested? Not just interested to react as we have since Adam and Eve, but to find out what's going on in a curious, open way. Even though I may get hurt. All right, if I get hurt, I've got something to look at or to feel. Is one curious, interested, wondering? I don't think anyone is here who hasn't at one time wondered what's going on and whether there can be freedom from fear or agitation or restlessness, peacelessness. And allow that question not become a sort of sledgehammered demand for an answer, but to hover there someplace. To be there. Every once in a while it surfaces. And it has a strange effect to shed light on what's happening, or to be more attentive, because there is a question hovering in the mind. Which means that things come more easily into view because I'm wondering about something. And I'm wondering whether I can see without immediately judging. I don't know the answer. Experience shows that judgment is there so quickly, but I'm still wondering. I'm not taking anything that has happened up to this point for being unchangeably so for all times. I don't even know what all times are, even at this moment. At this moment, everything has happened until this moment. But what is this moment? A bench is cracking, breeze is flowing. And is there someone there who feels it? Or is there just feeling it? Because the question is tricky. The moment I say, is there somebody? I say, of course there's somebody there. But is there image connected with it of being good and bad? Important or unimportant? images happen. The brain is an image factory, but they're not necessary to perceive what's going on this instant. Or to see somebody, not as a people, but as somebody I've never met before. So we can meet freshly. Is that possible? Don't say yes, don't say no. Let's find out. He or she may say something hurtful, something critical. But maybe it isn't so hurtful. Maybe it isn't so critical. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's something could have done differently or better. Maybe it's not true. No, the person has something going there. What is it? I want to find out more. Where is he coming from, or she? Can you tell me, or can I sort of feel my way into it? It's possible when I'm not all revolving within this network of protecting meanness. Which is A, unprotectable, because we do get hurt. B, it isn't even true, it's just imagery. You say, wait a minute, I won't buy that from you. Don't watch it for yourself. Nothing more dangerous than just repeating someone's words, and because the words may be fairly clearly put, therefore believing there's clarity in oneself about these things. We have to find out directly. And this is possible for human beings to have direct insight, even in the most subtle thought processes. Somebody said that. Thought goes so fast. Can't catch it. It's already gone. No, when attention is already there, a thought is just like a firefly. There it is. It's gone. And maybe the almost contacting the emotions can be felt. But when attention or awareness is there, that energy, it's perceivable that connection almost happens, but it's not happening. It's just this moment of being and listening, being there, feeling. But not as somebody. That is not bothering the perception. The moment I think, am I good, am I bad, superior, inferior, as good as, then something happens to this open space of unconditional listening. And it can be felt to contract and become emotional and protective, offensive, moody, depressive, or ecstatic. Does the thought come up? I can't hear unconditionally. Maybe she can. I can't. That's a thought. And it has an impact. It closes something off. Does the thought come up? I don't have any questions. Maybe that's the truth. Maybe there's no question right now. Is there the second thought, but I ought to have a question? Or I don't know how to question? The questions that are talked about are not necessarily our conventional questions. It can just be a being here and not knowing what anything is. realizing the word breath, tree, fear is a word, but not the actual ongoing affair. That is relatively simple and easy to realize, isn't it? That the word fear, hurt, me, you, that these words are words and not the ongoing process, thing, affair. That is something much more. A word is a very skimpy abstraction. The word crow is not this caw, caw, cawing, neither is what I do, what the crow is doing. So with that realization, which is simple, and it's obvious, isn't it? That the word crow is not this black thing flying. These words also don't do it. No words do it. It has to be seen. And even the seeing of it is not whatever is all going on in the crow. It's unknowable, indescribable, unnameable. And yet something is going on. Something black flying through the blue sky, and the breathing and heartbeat and fresh air. Right now I'm seeing myself on that porch out there, the deck. So realizing over and over again, it doesn't hurt to realize it freshly a million times. It's always fresh, that the word is not the real thing. What is the real thing? If it's not the word, the description, the explanation, then what is it? I don't know. I really don't know. Nobody does. Because one may have that silent or noisy conviction, eventually I'll know, I'll just read some more about it or study some more about it. Well, in that case, one goes and studies more about it. But all the books in the world cannot convey what a crow is flying through the sky. So then, with more and more of this dawning realization that the known is not the real thing, then maybe there can be a being sitting, walking, without knowing everything. And just wondering, open to discovering whatever is discoverable. Looking at a blade of grass, the railing on the deck, looking at it with some white spots. Probably knowledge says these are bird plops. The distant hills, what are they? As children we begin to draw them, or worse yet, we color. We color. Our grandchildren love coloring books. I think it binds anxiety, just fill in between the lines. Does more than that. So the hills are not the outline or what are they? You go them closer and closer and closer, and you know less and less and less about them. And yet everything that's seen, whether it's seen closer, maybe put under a microscope, it can be just discovered as it is, not as something pointing toward something else. So we were starting saying, what if I feel I have no question? Nothing formulates itself into a usable question. Sometimes people say, I just want to sit, I don't want your questions. Well, then just sit. Just sit and don't know. Don't know what to do about whatever comes up or doesn't come up. Then there's openness for it just to be there, as it is and as it changes. Does that sound like a project? It doesn't have to be. We can see our project making impulses and don't have to be trapped in them. Because just being without knowing for a moment on the mat, on a walk, while eating, what is this food? Today it's tofu, peas, and mushrooms, I think. I've eaten that stuff for the last 26 years, because we already had it at the Zen Center. We still haven't changed our recipes. There's good reason for it. I'm not trying to put pressure on the kids. What I really meant to say, as strange as it must sound, it tastes good every time. If I don't think, oh, not that again. Sometimes when Kyle and I go to a restaurant, it's amazing how many people in this country order hamburgers with such reliability. It must more often even than tofu peas. We will end here for today.